Is everybody ready? That was. Okay, money. 4:01 p.m. This is the Bluff Town Council work session. Today is Tuesday, November 11th, 2025. Roll call.
Linda Sosa.
Britt Worsby.
Jennifer Dogwa.
Spencer Wade.
Ann Lepinen.
Erin Nelson serving as town manager.
So the first item is a discussion of modifications to the general plan. And I think the one thing I'll say before I turn it over to Erin is that there was a lot of work that was done on potential revisions. And then Erin and I met yesterday and she came up with a couple of ideas. So I just stopped trying to be helpful and turned it over to Erin. So Erin, do you want to kind of update where we sit right now with this?
Yeah, so, certainly it is a rather lengthy document. And one of the things that Amanda and I were talking about as we were making the edits and going in and updating, a lot of the data pieces, was that, it is rather, and it's this idea of, is it a general plan or is it a super prescriptive, like, this is exactly what we're doing and how we're gonna do it. And so I did reach out to Mike Hansen. Hansen Group was the one who did the evaluation of, whether the general plan was meeting the state requirements and, making suggestions as to how, we can improve it. At the very least, make sure we're meeting all the state requirements. But I had a quick meeting with him and we went over a couple things and he said, that's a really loaded question. Is my strategic plan too long? But he gave me some ideas as to how we could kind of trim it down while still maintaining all of the information. And so the big takeaway for me was that a lot of the historical data can probably get moved to the appendices. So that'll actually make the plan itself quite a bit shorter, but people will still be able to get he called it like the book report version of the history and everything if they want to by going to the appendices. So I was like, ooh, that in and of itself is going to save us a lot of pages. Then number two, he talked about, yes, we can distill down some of the resulting policies. Some of them are, I shouldn't say duplicative, but some of them, they're kind of saying the same thing a couple of times. So we can kind of move those into just like a really poignant single sentence or short paragraph, and that'll save some things too. Number three is that in our resulting policies, so a general plan is not an ordinance. And when you read through some of these policies, we are really almost bridging this gap between a general plan and saying, this is, what we want the law of the town to be. So he recommended taking out the terminology. He liked the layout of like current conditions, assumptions. Those planning assumptions are really important, especially in the state of law where, things do change. And we can say, well, we are working off of this assumption, but the situation has changed thus, blah, blah, blah. So just keep all those elements, but then change resulting policies to something like strategic priorities or goals and priorities, because you're not really saying we're making these policies right now, but we're still headed in this direction of an optimal, an optimal or a defined goal or priority. And so he said with those changes, then you could go in and say, there are a lot of singular items in the strategic plan that say, create an ordinance on XYZ, create an ordinance on, this. And it's like, we're kind of wanting to get away from that. All of those things we actually have encompassed in the strategic plan. Like if you go and read the strategic plan, many of those very specific items are already listed there. So we're going to bring this back up to like the 30,000 foot view and say, okay, strategic plan, very definite. Go and make that noise ordinance or go and make the idling ordinance. And we see that a lot in the general plan. Let's bring the general plan back to this is the overall feel, aesthetical direction, values of the community, and kind of just kind of massage it into more of a general plan as opposed to this really specific. So that's gonna help cut down a lot of the text. And then he really encouraged, maybe I can share my screen really fast just so you guys can see. So he really encouraged, so we don't want to like steal from anyone's general plan. That's a big no-no. Like you don't want to copy anyone's, but he said they had just gotten through doing some, that's what they do. They're consultants, they create general plans. And so if we can kind of make this template, so each of our sections looks really similar. This specific I'm looking at right now is for North Logan. But it just is kind of a nice visual way to break down the data in each of the sections. So it would have something about, so this is in their land use and zoning specifically is where I'm at now. But instead of going really heavy on the words, we can incorporate some pictures. Of course, we will need to adhere to the ADA compliance, describe what we're doing, have some maps, and then like, here's the water impact, here's the fiscal impact, and, really think about, what areas in each of the sections we have. The other very minor thing he said, he would really discourage us from numbering anything, because even though a lot of our things come with the disclaimer about like, these aren't in any particular order, he said, just do away with numbering, either do lettering or bullet points or something. And that will also, he said, you can also take a lot of your big paragraphs and break it down into the ABCs or the bullet points, and that's going to break it up for the reader to make it more digestible. So I'm excited to incorporate a lot of these ideas into our general plan. I think pretty much all the meat is here. And so I think for like the next draft, it would be taking a lot of this and again, either moving it into the appendices, taking out the really, really, really specific resulting policies, and then just doing some formatting to make it more accessible. And, his example, he's like, North Logan's funny because they have like 26 different zoning areas, which he's like, so that's a lot. But he said that, the actual plan itself is quite a bit shorter. With the appendices, it's still a very long document. And that's what we'll probably see too. Like we'll still have a pretty long document. But it'll just make it a little bit more digestible for incoming council people, for newly appointed officials to be able to pick it up and say, yes, this is the area that I'm really interested in. We also talked about the benefit of having a lot of detail, because if we do get into a legal situation where we're working with developers, or something comes up, we do want to have this backbone to rely on that says, no, this is what we agreed is the direction of the town, or whatever that point is, because it is often that the general plan will come into those types of discussions. So don't want to lose the detail, but we can trim it down to make it more digestible, and kind of keep that book report into the appendices for a lot of our history and the real detailed current conditions.
So, questions or thoughts? I would not use bullet points, because if you're referencing a section, it's like you've got to say, it's like, oh, it's this section, fourth bullet point. I would do letters just to make it simplistic and clear. How do you want to approach this?
Well,
I'm concerned about the amount of time that this is going to take on you.
I guess I'd like to work backwards. When would you all like to, well, and that was my other question too, like, if we're saying that we're keeping a lot of it, we're getting rid of some of the specifics, that doesn't have to go back to public hearing if we have a substantially different physical copy of the document. Like, what are the ramifications? When would we want, if we had to do that public hearing, when would we want that done by?
I would think if you're removing completely rather than changing the layout, you would, if it was substantial, then you'd need the public hearing, but it's simply taking out like the historical pieces and putting them into the appendices. You would need to, because it's all there, it's just done differently, and the layout shouldn't affect anything. However, that being said, if it looks like it's going to be a rewrite that's substantial from what we did in the public hearing, if we did the public hearing, noticed it, and got it done the first week of December,
Yeah.
and then but went ahead and voted on it. And then we have it done before the changeover on January 6th.
Gotcha, so we could have it. So the public hearing could be like December 2nd. You've got at least 10 days before the December 16th meeting. So then that would put our noticing. So it would need to go into the Salmon record next week. Hmm.
When do you leave on vacation?
Oh, it'll be done before then, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I definitely would want a nice version available to the public by the time it's noticed and everything's gonna go out in the open. I know that, I mean, technically planning and zoning, like they are the entity that is ultimately responsible for this as well. So they have a work, so they are meeting next Thursday. I'm wondering if we could get them to help me with some of the meat of it. You know, I think we're running into a timing issue to get it done before the end of the year potentially. No one wants to call it special meeting.
Yeah, but that's not if we feel like we need to have a public, if it's changed substantially. You don't feel like it's changed substantially, right? I mean, so
I think
most of the
we,
information's gonna be somewhere.
yeah, I think, let me share my screen here. Since we are in a work session, it's not as just a sec. So, for example, I'm gonna make you dizzy for just a second. So a lot of the land use changed, and that already has gone to public hearing. Because we didn't have zoning when this was originally written, so Amanda did a lot of it in there. But for example, if we go to. Let's see here. And he liked words like emphasize, minimize, develop, encourage, those are all like kind of nice suggestions as opposed to like create this specific policy. So he was good with language like that, encourage placement, a lot of those words sound similar. Let me skip down to. Oops. Make sure I'm not deleting anything. So like all of this is newer stuff that we had put in, so like support, align, promote, those are all kind of probably in line. But getting into I don't know, that probably, we probably don't have as much as I thought. Potentially, we do have a lot of these kind of higher level things. I suppose when we get into any of the just real specific, like create this specific ordinance, we would just want to make sure that either we could, you know, it's already in the strategic plan, and I guess that's where I was getting to is like hire an appointment an ordinance enforcement officer. Maybe we could just rework this to either reference the strategic plan, which has this exact line in it, or, you know, as opposed to just saying, we're gonna, you know, this is number one on here, I don't know, change it in such a way that would, you know, but
I think when, like when you and I were talking about the tie between the strategic plan and the general plan, is that the things that you and I were looking at that could be either put in an appendix or just pulled out are referenced in the strategic plan.
Yeah,
And linking to the strategic plan, we've already had multiple meetings on the strategic plan. It's not that we're changing anything, that is the strategic plan. This is just making it more general and not as task specific.
yeah,
And I think I think we're, and I could be wrong, I think where you get into a problem is if you're throwing in a whole bunch of stuff that is more controlling and more specific than pulling it out and making it more general, referencing our specific plan. And, you know, what we could do is give it the best shot, and if
Yeah.
you get to next week and come back and say,
it's all.
you know, we can't, then we'll go to game plan 2, which is I resign and somebody else.
But like,
But, I mean, we don't have to make that decision right now. Let's give it,
okay,
Maybe we're aware that it could be a timing issue
Yeah.
if it is change stuff.
yeah. So, yeah, so like here, this is a good example of create a no engine braking ordinance, create ordinances to address noise, create ordinances to manage RVs, encourage the placement of all utilities underground. It's like, those are very, very specific. And so,
So
I
it
will-
seems like we could say,
yeah, I feel like we could just like bring this all to a single bullet point or
right,
a number, letter.
Please see
Exactly.
strategic plan,
See strategic plan, we are, you know, something to, because all of these, the idea is to like maintain the rural lifestyle. So we could probably take this and, you know, remove any specificity that say, you know, encourage ordinances, or, you know, encourage development of ordinances to meet visual noise and whatever rural lifestyle elements. And then, you know, all of these are probably still in our strategic plan. So if you guys are comfortable with that, so I guess it's just like the quantity, how many of these would we be removing to meet the new layout?
I mean,
I like the idea of
Yeah.
making it more readable.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, it's a single space 50-page
Yeah.
shopping, that's
Yeah.
insane. And it's not, that was my whole issue, is like, it's not general, it is.
Yeah.
Very
It's very
prescriptive, yeah.
we were working on the original draft of the original general plan. That was what it was supposed to be, was like, oh, if you're a business looking around at where a location could be. You know, it's the document you pick up and get a good sense of what the town is without having to then comb through ordinances and stuff like that. You just get a sense if this is the town, you know where it's headed.
Is this a good fit for, yeah.
Or if you're looking to move, you know, whatever.
And that's what I like too about like North Logan's. They do, so none of these places are actually in North Logan, to my knowledge, don't keep me to it. But like, they're saying, this is the feel of what we're going for. And so, and of course, we'll do a description, alt text, but like, this is the feel of what we're looking for in this area. This is the feel of what we're looking for in our neighborhoods. This is the feel of the economic environment that we're trying to embody. And so hopefully by adding those elements, it would be, yeah, anyone could pick it up. And I don't want to discredit, I mean, I can't state this now, I don't want to discredit all the work that has gone into this, like, this is incredible. But if we can make it more accessible, maybe that would help everyone, so.
well, just flipping through the strategic plan. You know, like for the ordinances and enforcement, we reference all those, you know, create ordinances, work on enforcement, do all of that. I really don't think that the focus will necessarily change the need to have a public hearing. I think what is going to drive it is whether it's doable
Yeah,
in terms of time. So,
okay.
and I had it in my notes from a couple weeks ago, probably, that we would consider some or all of us joining planning and zoning on that that date. Is it the 20th? Yeah, I had it in my calendar as a note that we talked about doing a joint meeting. So it could be, we could notice it for all of us to be there with the idea that it's not a mandatory meeting. If you can be there, great. If you can't, great. But at least maybe having one or two of us in there to talk about it.
That's the date.
The
Uh,
20th.
Thursday, November 20th. Well, and that would be good too, because if we needed to have a public hearing. I think it would just put us 1 week off, but if we need to have a public hearing, you could decide during that meeting. So I feel like a week. And change should be enough time for me to. Get a good. Draft.
I'm happy to prove,
Okay.
I'm happy to go.
Well, and a lot of it really is like cutting and pasting stuff over. So, okay,
What time?
yeah, they usually start at 6.
We can just note it as a public or as a joint session, and then those people who want to be there can make it great. No requirement if you have a thought about what you want to see and you can't make it, just let one of us know, particularly probably Aaron. But I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
So the 20th,
The 20th, yeah.
Does anyone have any other like requests or items that they would like to? Like for me to evaluate as I'm kind of moving it over to a new format and look. I might need help with some pictures. That might be and maybe that's what we could talk about during that meeting too, is like, okay, here's what I have, here's what I would still like to have. To make it more.
Yeah, I think the one that we looked at that had some pictures that really,
Anne was talking about Tori.
Yeah.
Keep going.
it made it so.
Yeah.
When you look at ours, it's like reading a textbook.
Yeah.
And I doubt that there are very many people in the public who actually have gone through the original general plan in the last 3 years. So maybe,
Okay, so Tori's is, much larger text. They have it broken down with charts. They've got some nice maps in here.
Sure, it's like a PowerPoint.
Yeah, it's much more high level. And like, this is very, I think, visually appealing. Okay, oh, I've got a paragraph to read and here's something to look at. And yeah,
well, so I'm happy to donate time to read and do those kinds of things.
Okay, cool.
I'm not equipped to be able to move, cut and paste things.
I'm hoping if I can get it into like the formatting, then we can go through and say like, yes, this makes sense.
But we pass that back or anything. Those are my scribble notes on the general plan, so. Anything else, any thoughts on that?
Thanks for working on that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, and thanks for thinking to call Mike Hanson. I had a different, I told her, and I had a different one when we were talking. Mine was, let's just call the Hanson group and throw it at them.
Which I know they will do as well. Like, I know they will, that's their bread and butter, but I do think that we have the opportunity to, keep it in-house and hopefully save a little money and. Yeah, but it is such an important element, and I was very surprised even in my research, like. Your general plan really speaks a lot about. I mean, it really can be pulled into all different types of situations where you can prove out, like, nope, this is what we wanted, or no, that does not fit within our town's character, and it was very impressive. So,
Well, we definitely saw it during the depositions.
Especially the facts that.
Yeah.
yeah.
So. Great. We've got a plan. All right, number 2, discuss the creation of an ADA compliance officer and how the duties requirements fit into existing or additional staff. So given that we have a deadline of April 2027, we have a little bit more time. In order to make everything compliant, but I do think if we don't create that job right now by first few meetings in January, it should be a designated position for someone with designated duties so that we can get started on it. And I think that fits into how much work Aaron and Malia are doing so that we're not overwhelming people. Staying current maybe with the compliance will be easier, but it's the backtracking. And I know we talked a little bit about this. So we would have to go back to 2018. And the hardest part would be the maps and charts. Malia, do you want to weigh in a little bit on what you learned in the trainings?
Sure. So if you looked at the draft minutes that I shared last week, they look different than what they looked like in the past. And that's because I started using more of the heading styles. So like using Microsoft Word to allow those screen readers to navigate, using heading 1 for the title and then going down to heading 2 for the next item, and then all of the discussion points were all heading 3. And then just organizing it more. So based on the description of those screen readers is, as we can visually look at something and organize, okay, this is the work session draft minutes. What am I looking for? Okay, I want to look at item 5, the essential officials training and notary public, and so screen reader should make it just as easy for someone to click through, so they can click on the headings and buzz through what they are and then select the topic that they want more information on. And so this is the way that our documents should start looking. They don't have to be as bullet pointed, but I noticed that with using those heading styles, it almost made it easier to just bullet point. And our website has the same options. We're going to be able to use those heading styles, heading 1, 2, 3 on our website, which would be an easy fix. It's just going to be a matter of going through the flow. And I think that Aaron's done most of this already.
Yeah,
To the headings fit.
yeah, and I think that for like our website specifically, so meeting minutes will be like their own animal. But I think that like for our website, they were talking about how HTML or, essentially having documents that are like built into the website, are quite, how do they describe it? They were preferred essentially for screen readers. And so things like our ordinances and resolutions, instead of having scanned in or even like Word or PDF documents, we could actually like create each ordinance's like own web page, which would then have each of those elements just like built into the web page. And so that, and then we would probably have like a signature line, so we could scan in, we'd still scan in that like this is, signed into law. And that would enable us to completely remove the element of PDF or a Word version, which I know like even some people on computers still have issues opening depending on like what kind of computer you're on or what version of Windows you're on and everything. And so there would be benefits to just like creating a separate web landing page for a lot of our like bigger documents. Things like the strategic plan and the general plan, I wouldn't want to transfer over to like their own web page necessarily, because there is going to be a lot that's going into the document itself. But I still maintain that like those larger documents, we might want to seek a third party to help us ensure they're ADA accessible. I would think too, like I know we said, moving forward, we want all of our documents to be ADA, but from this day forward, everything ADA. And I will do my best with the general plan, but it probably will be one that we would still want someone to look at, even though like I am gonna build in the headings and everything now. So kind of my thoughts.
Yeah, and then one of the hardest things is unfortunately, like, the reason you're suggesting the strategic plan and general plan to go to a third party is because anything that is a table or an image needs to be described. An alt text that basically describes what that table is showing, what that picture is of, because if it just says image, that doesn't help them at all. Is this a decorative image or is this something that's critical to this document? So it's a lot of just combing through.
That was an interesting one too, because there were like decorative little scrolls around like a heading or something that like, you know, just someone added for just visual flair. And the person who was using the screen reader was like, what is this? I don't know what it is. So we would want to think about that too. Like everything kind of has to have a purpose. So not that we have a whole lot of decorative scrolls, but yeah,
And we have to make everything ADA compliant from 2018.
everything that we would have on our, that would be shared,
Share with the public.
shared with the public, yeah.
With the little bit of. Or the lot of bit of work that y'all have done making things ADA compliant, do you have any idea of like, or like a rough estimate of. Like how much work it is? Like time, like, I don't know,
We have over 5,500 documents on our website. Cause when I was looking at the quotes, to have someone like rebuild our website through like Civic Plus or something, they did an analysis. And so we have a lot of them are like in the archived section of like our minutes that are, if you go to town council archive minutes and agendas, and everything the whole way back to 2018 in there. So that's where the bulk of the time is gonna be. And I can't tell, it looks like these are,
scan.
yeah, no, it looks like some of these are actually, these are in good shape. Some of our longer document, I bet some are scanned in, some are the actual original documents, which is nice.
I think
But-
we need for ordinances or the scans.
Yes, yeah, the ordinances, we need the originals from. But it's a lot, but I don't know like an hour estimate on how much it would take.
So. I haven't done it. Have either of you reached out to any of these companies to see? Why don't I take that on and work on getting some quotes, because I know in both trainings. They threw out names of companies that did it, and the league should be able to help with that, so,
Good to at least know what it would.
Yeah.
Cost.
yeah.
Mhm.
Figure out what it would cost, I mean, one of the problems. Is because it's an unfunded mandate, everybody has to do it, those bigger entities are gonna be snapping up the companies quickly, because they'll have a lot of work. We have a lot of work, but we have a smaller amount to deal with in the historical part, but I can go ahead and start working on that. And see if I can get some leads. I'm guessing Civic Plus will have a list of people who are doing it. Because they do San Juan County's commission packet. And I'm guessing they've got leads on companies, and then I'll go back through the training material.
What direction do you want to take on the creation of the compliance officer position?
I wonder if it's easier to come up with a job description as to what that compliance officer will have to do. And then bring it back to the next meeting with a description with some kind of hopefully breakdown of what time is going to be spent. I'm concerned that that's a position that possibly will need to be created for somebody part-time. maybe throw a couple other things in there with it.
I feel like since they're handling so many of the records just in general, maybe combining it with the town recorder responsibilities might make sense.
Will this include planning and zoning stuff? I'm assuming.
It's everything. It would also be a very quick way to get familiar with like the reporter duties and documents and everything as well.
It's probably, let me see if I can find some descriptions of what the compliance officers to do and what the obligations are. Our bathroom signs, are they brailled?
I think so. They're not braille raised lettering, maybe? They're not braille, maybe raised lettering. I think they're braille though.
And thanks for getting the baby changing table up and running. That was a big thing.
You can find pricing on some of these companies,
Bathroom
like the
sign
one
braille.
that they,
Mhm.
at the
The
webinar,
bathroom sign
push
braille.
dot X, $50 a month for 1,000 document pages. And then the pro is $400 a month for 10,000. That's the one that I did the webinar. You can go up to $3,000 per month. 100,000 pages for businesses. Bigger, I guess. Anyways.
I'll see what I can put together on this information. Any questions or additional thoughts? Anything else you want done on it?
I was just gonna say, like, if we were to use a company to quickly get our documents changed over, I do think that the ongoing job or like the ongoing work would be much more straightforward and a much lower time commitment. So that would be an interesting evaluation of like, do you pay to get everything just changed over as opposed to hiring on someone for ongoing pay to, you know, slowly work their way through and everything. So that'll be an interesting comparison. Alright.
Issue. Honestly, I didn't think about it. It's awesome that we're doing it, but I just didn't think about it.
Well,
I kind of lived it would be that.
yeah, it's interesting because unless, and I may have just missed it, but I hadn't seen anything in the Utah League of Cities and Towns about this until it came at us. So,
Well, and it is interesting, like if you look at other municipalities, a lot of people are not currently compliant. I was like, who would be compliant? Salt Lake City, yes, they actually, a lot of their stuff is, but then a lot of it still isn't, and they're still working towards it. New York City is a great one to go look at their website because they are like very on the ball. But being able to compare like Bluff, Utah to New York City, a little different. So just a little, but yeah, but if you, I mean, honestly, most municipalities, at least from looking at like the training of what we did, most municipalities are gonna have a lot of work to do over the next year, so.
And that is the good news, is that we're, at least it's happening, we're a young town. So
yes,
Yeah,
and that we've got, and that we're a town, we don't have the requirement to be done in 2026, which is
definitely.
definitely having that extra year. Well, number 3, update on Bluff Cemetery and Bluff Food Pantry and how they'll fit into the town structure and duties. So on the Bluff Cemetery, I feel like I take 2 steps forward and then a half a step back rather than 3 steps back, getting better. we have Century Mapping coming in Wednesday or Thursday to do the mapping and the digitalization part that we need to have for the cemetery. And I had a meeting yesterday with an assistant county attorney, Jens Nielsen, about what it is we're attempting to agree to. He started off the conversation with, he understood that we were working to have Hole in the Rock take over the cemetery. And then through the course of 45 minutes, he understood more of what Mac and Hole in the Rock and Lori Mon and I have been talking about. So I think he's on the same page. Mr. Nielsen is going to come down to Bluff probably Wednesday or Thursday as well to look at the cemetery, because he was very convinced that the part we are talking about is that southern part that the county owns. And he said he's very familiar with the cemetery, but he did think maybe he should come and look at it. So he's coming down. Chris McEnany is reviewing the cemetery ordinance that's drafted that we've all looked at. And I think the biggest question for him was whether the town wants to create a cemetery board to do the day-to-day management piece, meaning that, you know, somebody wants to buy a plot, they help with having them select the plot. When somebody dies, they help with coordinating all the stuff. They have some bylaws and have meetings and actually do the the reporting so that we get it properly in the auditor's hands. Or does the Bluff Town Council want to take it on and be that board? Because council could be bold and do all of the duties and functions, and then still probably have someone like Bill Davis opening and closing graves. Either way, the accounting piece would go through our accounting, just line item. What I told Chris was, I had never heard a discussion, or I was not aware of any discussions that said that the town council wanted to be the cemetery board. That we talked about advertising. We have some folks who are really interested. It's not a full-time job. It's maybe one meeting a quarter. You know, that if I have all the paperwork and everything ready to go, when the board is selected, then there really isn't much work. I don't think we average more than 2 to 3 burials a year. But I don't know that, I just want to have a reality check. Particularly I'm looking at the two of you and you, if you want to do it differently, that's fine. I can have, I think, pretty much everything ready to go.
You can do it.
But
I'm good with assigning a board.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's a great way to do something in town. It's huge commitment. Great entry level folks and stuff like that, so.
I also think it creates the continuity that when we have an election, all of a sudden we don't just have a toss up of cemetery board or whatever. We've got
something in place.
yeah.
Yeah. I like the idea of a board, and when the county advertised 3 years ago for a board, they had like 5 or 6 applicants who were interested in.
I thought for it.
Yeah, and I just think it's just one more duty that the council would be taking on. Where,
I'm happy to share the wealth.
okay, then I will continue to work with Chris to make sure that that's a piece that we don't lose. And then the other part was I asked him to look at the conclusion that I reached with, because I couldn't find anything that something different. It's like, how do you exhume a body? Who is responsible? Does it get done? And make sure that that piece in there is correct. I couldn't find any state control or county control for doing that. It just all referred back to a mortuary, a licensed mortuary. So that would be part of the review.
Do you need any support on the county lawyer, assistant lawyer coming down?
It would probably be good to have somebody go up there with me and hear what he's saying. So
Oh,
either Wednesday or Thursday, he didn't know which day, but he said he would text. Okay, and I think, obviously, I have to keep saying the same thing. I don't read maps. I'm not, I know where it is. I know what I'm talking about, but where it is in directional, when he started going down the directions, I'm like, no, pull up the map and look at the road going. I can show you on that. But I'll just text you then if you're willing to do that. And I think I've kind of moved his thinking into, we're not talking about that southern county piece. You know, we're not equipped to take on other people's lack of record keeping, which just what we're talking about is the piece that the current burials are in. You're welcome to join us up there.
Not this week. If it was next week, I might consider it, but not this week.
And Mac McDonald, the last thing about it is, I talked with him. Well, I met with him and with Jed Lyman last week. And then Mac and I talked on the phone, and he's trying to get this to the commission. If not next Tuesday, the following meeting to approve the transfer, whatever that looks like. And Jens Nielsen said that if nothing else, we could do an MOU that this is what we're doing, how we're doing it, so that we can have it laid out before the end of the year when I'm done. So that would all be laid out and ready to go. But I think we're moving positively. Then the second piece is the Bluff Food Pantry, which has a couple of pieces to it. Malia has been continuing to do the scheduling. I like the idea that when Malia sends out the schedule, she does tell people, if you're not on the list, please don't show up. It's a small area. However, today was a good example of everyone wanting to help, and there were at least 5 or 6 people, several of whom were not on the list to help. Ron Nielsen from Utah Food Bank was going to be here, but he had something come up and didn't know that. Right now, you know, we still had a pretty good food delivery, it looked like. And Malia, did you pretty much get at least some of the items that the volunteers had identified?
Yes, we did. Yeah, we received the dry window beans that were on the list and some canned vegetables. It's exciting. Still no animal protein products.
So what I understand from Malia is that she's been working on collecting like how this operational piece works. And the goal, I think, is still eventually to move it to an outside person or agency to handle it. So one of the conversations I had the other day, God, time frame got scrunched in. So Drew Cooper set up talking with the mission a week ago. So it was the mission with Reverend Chase and Diane Ben and Commissioner Harvey, and brainstorming like we have the mission that has a food pantry. We have a food pantry. The chapter houses try to put food out. Their food comes a lot from the LDS side. So Drew reached out to Victor Arredondo, who is the LDS person in charge for the Southwest area, which means Arizona, Nevada, Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and us, meaning the Bluff area. And Victor is the head of the humanitarian services. So Drew is so good, at getting everybody communicating. So two pieces to this to help the community on food. One piece is LDS emergency relief, meaning they do something to help the community, the broader community now. And the question was, if the LDS organization were willing to do that, which Victor seemed to feel they would, did St. Christopher's, the towns, whatever, would it be preferable to get a cash donation or a truckload of food? And we were all on board. The truckload of food is easier. We don't have a way to transport. We can unload, but we can't transport. The concept that was talked about was doing another kind of drive-by distribution. Like we used to do, because this is not USDA food, it's not pantry food, it's a donation, and it does not need to be coming through here, put on shelves with nothing on the top shelf and then handed out. We can do the big distribution. And Victor seemed to think that he would be able to do something, they would be able to do something for the community in November and December. But of course, in the long range planning is really where everybody needs to go, even if SNAP and WIC come back tomorrow, or we have Elon Musk donate $1 million. It really is a long-term discussion, which Victor was very interested in having with the entities, like how would they be able to support with food or otherwise. So that's kind of a big picture. What we might be able to do in November and December to help out with this food shortage that I think we're going to definitely be seeing. Diane Ben, I'm going to go out and talk with her because at the mission, because she's the one that manages the food pantry out there. Just to get a sense as to how she does it. They don't do the same kind of reporting we do. So if we kind of teamed up on services for this temporary period, we could add the numbers that they're serving with our numbers and possibly get more food, another food calculation from the food pantry or the food bank. But I think the long-term piece is we're committed to the space with the grant to show a long-term progress, but who runs it and how it's managed, I think is something that the 2026 council is going to probably need to take on. Like right now, it's moving smoothly with probably too many bosses in the pantry. And Malia's doing a great job with the scheduling, but again, when you're moving into 2026, that's going to have to be, I think, a conversation as to who performs oversight of the pantry and is there someplace we can move it to. And Bluff Community Foundation would be, I mean, that was their mission kind of thing, is to be able to take these kinds of projects on. And right now, they're not capable of it. But it could be that moving into the next year, if we get it set up with operational standards and people know what they're doing. Malia, do you know how many people came in today roughly?
It was a lower number day because the senior center was closed for the holiday.
Well,
So
that's
they didn't do lunches today. So I'll check back in and see if any food was taken over there for Thursday. And maybe it might be that Thursday's our bigger day, just if people stopping by the senior center and picking things up. But I came by around 1 and there was nobody here.
Why don't you and I talk about Thursday then, and it might be that I can staff Thursday and have that open so people can get them. So lots of questions on food pantry, food movement. Well, we did stress in the communications with the LDS, with Victor, protein. We need protein. We need to have canned meat, not fish. We need to have canned soups with meat, things that are gonna give people protein that's easy to store.
I think it's super important, and we talked about it, with Malia, tracking like hours, how much time it is, so somebody else.
You know, and it could be depending on if ADA compliance officer is hired with a grandma, that may be food pantry supervision. If nothing, if no organization is stepping up, could be another option. Which would pretty much, I would think, give a close to a part-time job. The other thing is we have roughly, don't hold me to the number exactly. Let me just. We'll have roughly this month, about $2,400 in cash to put into the food pantry, to cover the shortages. And it could be, since they're donations and they're not tied to the USDA or anything like that, or any granting, it could be that that's money that could be tapped into provide some temporary support to work on operations, so.
And to confirm, those are not going through town of Bluff accounts, they're just going through the food pantry account for everyone listening. If someone wanted to make out a check, who would they make it out to?
Bluff Food Pantry, or they can still make it out to Ginny Burns.
Okay.
And then that will obviously need to be a conversation when some of this gets decided, which is not gonna be in the next 2 months, but like, how does this work? But yes, if somebody wanted to make a donation, that would be great. Food donations are always welcome as well, but definitely focus on the things like canned meats, canned soups with meat.
And if you do it as a food donation, if you could go through me on that, because I include this.
Good idea. All right, then. Number 4 is discuss standard operation plans and San Juan County Bluff Volunteer Fire Department emergency plan. I put this on here more as an informational piece. We did get from Tammy Gallegos 3 emergency management plans that they've implemented. And I thought it was important that everybody be aware of what the operation plans are for extended power outage response, road closure notifications of 190, Highway 191 and 491, notification of assistance needed. And
I think I got 2 of the 3 into the agenda packet today. Sorry about that.
did I not send the third one? Probably didn't.
I
Or-
should have it.
Yeah, they
Incorporated community request for assistance SFP. Let me just drag that in there. Sorry. Okay, all 3 of them should be in there now.
And while, you know, so much of this does really apply more to unincorporated areas, it dovetails into the emergency operation plan the Bluff Volunteer Fire Department has. So Chief Lott has been working on a revision to that emergency operation plan. Aaron and I have been given a copy of it. In an ideal world, I'd love to see it finished by January 1st. But I don't think that that's realistic, given everything that we're trying to do and the holidays and a cheap lot. But for those people listening who ask constantly, why don't we have an emergency operation plan? I will repeat, we do have an emergency operation plan and we dovetail into San Juan counties, but Bluff has its own. And the chief is busy revising it to fit more tightly into a couple of these situations, like we've never addressed tornadoes, you know? So there are things that the county's addressing, that the chief is addressing, that you'll all be seeing, I'm sure it has to come to, well, it has to come to the council for approval from Chief Lott, but that'll be 2026. But just in the interim, these are San Juan County's current updated plans, which the extended power outage is a really nice one to have. Questions, thoughts on that? And if anyone on the council wants to look at the draft of the revisions that the chief's been working on, I'm sure he would share that with everybody. But it's not for the public. So if there are no questions, we can move to number 5. The essential official training, which is December 13th, if you do it online. And if you want to, you can go up to Salt Lake. But it does cover about a half day put on by the league so that you can get your Open and Public Meetings Act training at the same time. And Aaron, I don't know if so was the cost $70?
I think the online one is 60. And as Ann said, it's December 13th, which is a Saturday from 9 to 1. And if you want to go in training, it's December 6th from 8:30 to 1. I think that includes lunch, which is why it's slightly longer. So 2 back-to-back Saturdays. And then I'd asked Ann if we are able to like do one group streaming, but she indicated that if we do it way that you only get like one certificate of training. So I suppose if folks want to do these trainings, they could reach out to us to like purchase to put on like the town credit card.
I did send a question up to Meg Bryan today at the league and said,
Okay.
Is my thinking correct? I'm not sure that it is, but could we stream it and then everybody take the test separately? Or is the purpose of paying the $60 per person computer, not whether we can stream it?
I wonder if we could stream it off of one, and if we all wanted to do that, each of us could pay for it. I mean, you don't necessarily have to watch your own screen, but pay for it and then we could all get the certification. But then we could still all stream it together.
Just do it as like a meeting essentially.
I think that at least for the times that Linda and I went up to Moab, it was very beneficial to do it with a group of people, because the pre-COVID, like 2018, 2019, 2020, the training, they twice streamed it in Moab and once in Blanding at USU, which I don't understand why they stopped doing that, but we weren't the only people in the room, so it was really nice to be able to brainstorm and ask questions. But I like that idea. We should probably, I can't remember if I sent it to Josh either as well. But they should probably be included. And if Meg Ryan tells me something different, I'll let everybody know, but I'm thinking in order to get the certification, although OTMA, usually we don't pay for it if you go through the league, so let me get some clarification from her.
I think the state auditor's office offers it for free as well. I think that's where a lot of those trainings are.
So it might be that just one, depending on how people feel, you might want to just pay for one and stream it here, and then everybody take a free OTMA. Because I think that's the only certification that they get.
I don't think I paid for my own. Took it this last time.
Yeah, I know the state auditor's one's like fairly straightforward and quick, and then you can just get the certification on theirs.
Well, we've got a couple more meetings to work this one out, so.
I feel like it included the new handbook. And that was
Mm.
part of the cost.
Mm.
And previously it was called newly elected officials. I mean, I like essential, but, there's a ton of information for the newly elected officials that you get stuff from the lawyer, you get stuff from, other things. So it's really helpful.
And do you know for the other ones, because there's like, so the one we're discussing is local government 101, then there's land use 101. Budget and finance, conflict, competence, Utah legislature, running a small community, all of these are 101s. Are there costs associated with any of the other ones? Have you gone through the sign up for any of the other ones?
I didn't, I think I got annoyed when I had to go to the registration to find out the cost, so I
Yeah.
didn't. But I just wrote a note, I didn't, maybe I did, specifically planning and zoning should be provided this information too.
Cause I could see signing up for the rest of them as like a single registered cost. I would not think that there would be any required training that you need a certification for on those. No.
The conflict competence is the one that I attended.
And there was a
And there
cost for
was a
that one.
cost, and it's because it was taught by a University of Utah law professor.
Gotcha.
So that might be the reason for the cost, is that they're bringing in a third party, and that's just to cover their fees.
Why don't I just call Meg Bryan and ask her all these questions tomorrow?
So I could definitely see the benefit of doing the rest of them as a group. So,
Just have a pajama party.
yeah, I know, I think Spencer, did you get a little scan of this? I'll make sure Jen and
I have one of those, yeah.
you've got one. Jen, Britt, do you have
I've got
these? Cool. If you need a scan, or if you need a copy.
a copy.
Okay, I'll get copies over. Or
Thank
how,
you.
even better, how about I
But you just-
scan it in and then
take
your
it, send
email?
it to you.
I got you.
Perfect.
Gotcha.
Yes,
Thank you. Awesome. Okay, I'll get those out to. Thanks.
Okay, then the notary, we have someone who successfully passed her test to be a notary.
Yay!
So there's some additional things that Erin needs to do. Erin,
Yes.
what do you need?
So, I need to follow up, so I did end up doing the notary, training and exam on the town's dime. But that I purchased my bond individually, so I need to send a couple things to the bonding company so they can actually send the bond. And then once I have that in hand, then I go to Utah's notary registration. They have to finalize a couple things. So my guess is that I will probably be like a fully fledged notary in about 2 weeks, if I had to guess. So one of the items that I wanted to talk about with you all was, essentially, do we want like a procedure, or I guess it'd be policy for what would you want me notarizing items for the public? Is there a cost that gets charged back that goes into the general fund? So there are a couple things that you can and can't tell me how to do, but one of the things you can say is like, what am I authorized to notarize on town time? Am I just serving the needs of the town government? Am I able to notarize for individuals who are coming in and need something notarized? Is there a cost associated with it, et cetera, et cetera? You can't tell me what to do in my off time, or if I
Really?
yeah, well, true. But for anything that would be like on town time, you could decide how to do that. And so I think I would like to kind of get your feedback as to what you think would be helpful. It does seem like a public service that would be beneficial for people to have access to another notary. So I will say I am more than open to notarizing public documents. Certainly it would be helpful to maybe either limit the time or like buy up payment only to ensure that we are preserving my workflow as an easily distracted person. But I wanted to talk to you about what you'd like to see for a policy for that. Clearly, we do have documents that will need to be notarized internally, and then in addition to the recorder who can give oaths of office, I will be able to do all the oaths of office for all of our newly elected and appointed officials as well, so that's kind of cool, so.
I reached out to Utah Local Government Trust today because I know that the treasurer's position for the bonding is covered there, and I'm guessing that as a notary performing duties for us, that's covered there. But I understand why you'd want to do it on your own too. I think it's a public service and it should be offered to the public, but I do agree that for workflow, like we've talked about, closing the doors and locking them on certain days and appointment only, to give staff time to be able to actually work.
Yeah.
Um,
I just-
and not be interrupted.
I question, like, if it's an emergency or something, maybe that open it to the public, but we do have 3 other notaries in town as well.
Who else do we have? Marcia, Haydenfeld,
Marcia,
Val.
Nancy and Val.
Oh, I didn't know that Nancy was. So Nancy Sumner? I did not know that. Somebody was looking for a notary on Saturday and I only knew of the 2.
Mhm.
Well, that's good to know. But yeah, I think an emergency is certainly different from the routine, but the person who, like when we did our house closing, it took the notary probably 45 minutes of doing all the notary stuff. So appointment seems appropriate. I don't know if it's just like, hey, I have this affidavit, can you notarize it?
And I mean, if you wanted to do it in your off time or something, then there's a 4th notary option as well, but I just question, I don't know, does it make it? I guess nobody's making any money off of it, but
No, and if we
does it
put in-
discourage other people doing it? It's.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
We need- It would, if we were going to charge anybody, we'd have to put it in the amended fee schedule that's going to happen.
Right.
After the first of the year or before, because we have a number of fees, but
And then the max dollar amount per item notarized is $10. So just, it's not a moneymaker, it's just, and you can also choose not to charge folks.
so the question that I would have is knowing that if you're not a member of the credit union, they charge, knowing that the other 2 folks charge. I could imagine a situation developing wherein if we don't set a fee, everybody will be coming here.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think you, Matt.
Yes.
I think we
Yes.
need to do a fee, so maybe check what the norm is and
Yeah.
what's comfortable and
Yeah.
put it in an amended fee schedule.
Okay.
I
That
think
sounds good.
Marcia charges $5 per stamp. I think that's what I paid Nancy as well.
That's my recollection. And when I go to the credit union,
You remember?
yeah, I remember, so, but I think
Yeah.
it's $5 if they do it there, if you're a non-member, but yeah, it's a good public service to have. I think that we could set ourselves up for chaos if.
And my intention in getting the notary really was to cover just like our internal documents and, I'm happy to help the public. I do think it's an important thing, but it really was to like notarize our internal documents and ensure that like things like ordinances or any of the land use stuff, like technically, the ordinance to just like that should have been notarized. And so, stuff like that, just to make it easier when we go up to the county recorder's office, it would be nice, so. Yeah.
So if you're willing, to do it to the public, for the public. What happens when there's, there aren't available, but you're at your other job?
So it would be like for the public to be on the town's dime, I would say like, these are the hours I am available. And so I would take like my hourly schedule from here. So, and that would, again, like the by appointment only.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking, you can be extremely busy
Yeah,
at times, and if you have people, interrupting that job. Because they know that you are a notary.
that we'll do $5 for the town and $10 for the. 20, no, I can only charge 10, yeah.
$10 and a burger. Yeah,
Yeah,
buy a
nice.
burger. If you don't buy a burger.
I
you
kid,
can't-
I kid. But yeah, no, and then yeah, so I don't know, some considerations with that, but I'm excited. I wish I had done it a little bit earlier, just
Like
because.
20 years ago.
Yeah, no, I think I've been okay up until this point, but it was, I will say, for anyone who's looking to go get their notary, it's not that complicated of a process. So if anyone else wants to go get their notary, you can join the ranks.
I was a notary for 30 years.
Not
No.
in your, you don't see this as a post-retirement job for yourself?
I know, and I think my husband
you
would
say
not want people knocking at the door on January
If
6th.
you say so.
He's
Um,
looking forward to those lack of knocks. I'm sorry, the Ewings live over here. We'll hand out maps. But thanks for getting that done.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
getting to be more burdensome as
Yeah.
we go, so.
And try out the public thing and doesn't work, stop it.
I think so too.
Yeah.
So, cool. All good things. Oh, and then I have to like order my stamp and everything, but yeah, I'm guessing probably about 2-ish weeks, but I'll let you know when I'm fully fledged.
Do you need a background investigation?
Yes, yeah, so that was part of the cost, the town, it was like an all-in-one, like exam, test, and background check.
I'll ask that later. Okay, moving to number 6, review and discuss capital asset self-inventory required for the ID application.
Aaron, can you get your charger?
Yeah, but I'm okay. No, it's just fun. Thanks, Meg. I was gonna play the game, see how low we can get for the
Does it
computer
last?
show. You're too kind.
Oh, your screen goes down and I got a little worried. Although,
Oh,
Are we different computers?
no,
Oh, okay.
it's interesting, I plugged it into the wrong, the owl was in the wrong port, but it looks fun. Okay, sorry.
Alrighty, so this capital asset self-inventory was included in your agenda packet this week for item number 6. So what this is in order for us to apply for the CIB, the Community Impact Board, we have to complete this capital asset self-inventory, which is going through all of our document, or all of our systems essentially. So there's multiple tabs. Oh yes, Aaron has pulled it up. Thank you. So many tabs. We have culinary water, secondary and stormwater systems, sewer systems, roads, power, natural gas, solid waste, fire protection, law enforcement, EMS, criminal justice, animal control, recreation and culture, vehicle fleet, planning, general administration and other. And what this is, we are filling out what our capacity is and what needs to be repaired and what our timeline is for each of these things to be repaired. So for most of these that are out of the town of Bluff, so things like culinary water, and then well, I guess roads is still within town of Bluff, but where we have other experts that are not currently in the room, I went to them and received their thoughts on where we are. And so basically what I'm hoping is that you guys can look through this and say yay or nay, if you agree with how it looks, and then I will submit this. So this is the first step to completing our CIB application. Unfortunately, we have to turn this in by May 1st, and then we cannot apply until that next fiscal year. And the fiscal year after that. So we'd be looking at applying in June would be the earliest we could apply once this goes in. I was hoping if they have the next trimester of fiscal year 26 is February 2nd. So it looks like we'd actually be looking at trimester 1 of fiscal year 2027, which would be June 1st for that application. So giving myself a little bit more time, which is good because this CIB process is extensive. If anyone had the chance to look through this, I'm happy to talk about any specific pieces. For things that are not necessarily owned by the town, like culinary water, since Bluff Waterworks is a special service district, I put a line there that at the top, water utility provided by Bluff Waterworks, special service district, water board appointed by San Juan County. And then even going over to like law enforcement, I just have a interlocal agreement with San Juan County. So many of these areas, I'm saying this isn't what we are not managing any of this, and some of them I have filled in, but other areas I've just left totally blank because it's not something that we are providing. And I don't want us to misrepresent ourselves in the future, because this is actually something we'll have to update every year. And in the future, if we report that we have law enforcement now, and this is how many full-time officers, and then we go back and change it up, I just don't want there to be any misunderstanding as we proceed.
So does anyone have any questions on this now, or should I move it to a vote for next week?
Malia, I was
Mhm.
curious, are there any areas that you feel still need attention or you need additional detail on?
I don't think so. I mean, the only area I really got to fill out was recreation and culture, because I got to talk about our buildings. Everything else is like interlocal agreement, or ask Marks or Michael, but I feel pretty comfortable with the information that our experts gave me, so. I guess, well, actually, so a little bit of feedback is the very last page, I guess maybe the page prioritization summary sheet. That is where we actually say what is our highest need. And so on there is really, I put recreation and cultural because of what we're trying to get the money for the CCC. And then also one of the suggestions that Michael received at that transportation board meeting was roads, because so many of our roads are so poor. So I have those two as our top, as number fives. And many of the others are actually zero because it's not something we currently are providing. So maybe reviewing those numbers if they need anything higher.
Yeah, I can see one number that I think we should talk about, and that's the sewer,
Okay,
because there's a long history with the sewer and a debt forgiveness of over $180,000 that kind of ties into all that. And
Okay.
I think people need to think about whether that's really even in the next 10 years a priority of any kind, but I quite honestly did not have a chance to go through this. So if anybody wants to ask questions or make comments, otherwise, what I'll put it on is for a discussion and vote next week.
When did you say it was due? Are you going to put it in?
May. Turns out.
And it's interesting because I did this 2 years ago with, maybe 18 months ago, with someone from the CIB. Which I think it looks, well, the form is slightly, quite a bit more than it was.
It's much more detailed.
Yeah, and so it's good that they're getting that detail, but that also benefits them, because then the CIB meetings are shorter, they can look at what everybody's got.
Yeah. And so we'll just want to make sure that the things that we are requesting funds for are included on that CIB list that we're turning into CIB every year? Is that who it's turned into?
Yeah.
Okay, so making sure that these projects are included.
So I know that, a number of these items are covered through interlocal agreements. And or there's another entity currently responsible for them. When we look at the prioritization list, I see that like some of these items are, there are priority numbers, you're in need to this. But others don't. So, like, I'm thinking especially about like emergency medical services. So I would say that as like, it is a very high need in our area. It's a very high priority, but we don't have a number associated with it. Culinary water, we're a little bit closer to, because like the board, is effectively here. What is the council's feedback as to like adding need and priority to other areas, even though they are like, should we do that? Should we say, no, they are covered by interlocal agreement and therefore the need is not there? I think, when Millie and I were talking about setting this up, we want to ensure that like, yes, the current situation is it's covered by an interlocal agreement, but it doesn't necessarily alleviate the necessity of having in the future additional assets allocated to these areas. So like, we very well might need fleet, we very well might need you know, more under fire protection and emergency medical services if we take those under our umbrella. And so, but I also don't want to be like, oh, yes, the highest need is emergency medical services, because that is, I don't know if it would be seen as like a detriment to our application to receive funding for recreational cultural assets, but what's the feedback there? Is anyone familiar with like, if we add or modify this need level, would it impact the application?
My question is, if it was something EMS related and we are currently running under the county, would it be us who is applying for the CIB grant, or would it be someone county that's applying for CIB grants? That's where my question is on that.
Or if we walk in tomorrow and the ambulance is parked in the parking lot with the keys in for us, you're taking on all of it yourself. I mean, I think that's why I think we just need some time to, everybody review it and kind of go through it. That's a pretty. Looking, if you're looking at it going forward, what do we, you know, what could we need possibly without having to amend the list or at least move the numbers around?
Since this is our first time, I shouldn't say our first time, since this is the first time, like really looking at it. Maybe, and your deadline has moved out a little bit, like, could this be something that you'd feel comfortable for everyone to look at and like not necessarily vote upon? But like, it's everyone's homework to get in here, and then during another work session, we could talk about modifications needed. I'd also like to tie this to the strategic plan as well, because like a lot of these areas are addressed in the strategic plan. And so maybe we can help with like the prioritization through that.
On that same vein of, if we were to put EMS, because we're using that as an example, if we were to use, to put EMS as a higher priority number, if this document submitted through Bluff would help support San Juan County's request, if San Juan County puts an ambulance on their request and we are reporting, it's a high need here, but we aren't the ones providing it. So it could be some research I can do. I'll call some other CIB folks and inquire about the effectiveness of this for other entities in those interlocal agreements.
So do we want it on next week's meeting, or do we want to move it to a work session?
What do you think?
Well, let me stop there for a second. If we need to have an additional work session, which is the next piece.
Oh, yes.
Because Malia requested a work session on CIB and CDBG, so we could just move this to that work session.
It's so true.
So we could just determine the date for the work session and move this. Right.
Not to discredit like all the work that Malia has done, talking to experts and moving everything forward, but yeah, I think it would definitely.
No, I think that kind of all fits together as having that discussion.
Yeah.
Rather than doing it at the meeting next week and then having an additional work session and try, you know,
Yeah.
consolidate it into the work session that,
While the brain's on the same subject.
Yeah.
Can help.
which is then really a good segue into number 7. Malia's requested an additional work session where those are the topics. Hopefully we won't be adding anything to those topics, so.
Yeah, in a sense, I would like a work session that is talking about those funding topics, but specifically for the CCC, of course. And so kind of a work session guiding the work on the CCC and pursuit of funds. And, you know, just as I work through it, I have different ideas of, if we were to do this, we could do that. And so it could be really good to just have a work session where everybody's brain gets to really sit with the CCC for about an hour or so and just kind of think through things and just have some really good discussion about moving forward with that. It'll be a lot of fun.
What do you think?
Well, we have a meeting next week on the 18th.
And then a joint meeting on the 20th with Nancy. Then it's Thanksgiving.
And thanks for the busy. Next week you could do 3 evenings in a row, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
That's hard for me.
If we have a work session on the tenth of December, if we tacked on 1 hour just specifically for this onto the regular work session to cover whatever else we're doing
On the ninth.
On the night.
on the 9th, well, I'm gonna be here the 10th. That'll be BWW. That'll be our last time. On the 9th, thank you, yes. So how do people feel about that? I don't see the week of Thanksgiving as being something people want to cram into.
Could we start it earlier? Can we do a 3 o'clock start instead of going later? That doesn't work for Linda.
Would that work for everybody to do that?
Tuesday the 9th.
Yep, Tuesday the 9th, 3 o'clock. So 3 to 4 on focusing on that issue and then whatever else we have for that.
That works for me.
Works for me.
Thank you, everyone. I'll put together something real nice.
I feel this is where my bag of Snickers that didn't get eaten at Halloween show up,
Oh, that sounds amazing.
unless I've eaten them all.
I was gonna say,
That's a month from now.
yeah, that's a long time between now and then. Lots to buy house.
While we're talking about the time of meetings, I missed what time are we meeting on the 20th?
6 p.m.
6.
All right, the number 8, the CDBG application update and that hired public hearing date.
Yes, so. I'll make this as fast as I can because I know we have that meeting on December 9th, but I attended the required how to apply workshop on October 21st. We are currently waiting for approval by the state of our address list so that we can begin that income survey. If we don't qualify based on that income survey, I have recently had a meeting with another person within Sula, whichever one they are at this point, CERTA, to determine if blight is a route we could go with this building, because it's an older building, and basically the answer is no. Because the building is able to be renovated, it is not considered blight. If he was like, if you were
Knocking it down.
knocking it down, we could probably help you with funding, but the fact that the building is restorable, so.
Still function as it's intended. use or
Yeah,
whatever, so
exactly.
it Can't be applied.
So, big bummer. In order for us to apply, the applications are due January 31st. And in order to apply, we have to hold a public hearing. And we only have to give 7 days notice for this public hearing, which I saw today, which is good news. We don't have to do the full 2 weeks. But they have a template that we use. And if we cannot identify a specific project, it's truly just a public hearing, asking the public, what do you want? If we were to apply for these funds, what would you want it to be spent on? And a meeting could be scheduled right after that, where you guys could discuss and vote that you do want it to go toward a specific project, but the public hearing cannot have any sort of lean toward a project. And with the government shutdown, who knows when we're gonna get this income survey? Because we're waiting on the list to be approved.
They haven't-
Oh, they opened?
No,
Oh.
no, they haven't voted to open. They've made a deal, but they haven't actually
Oh, okay.
opened as far as I'm aware.
So the required public hearing has to be held before what date?
January 31st. Yeah.
And they are very specific on the wording. You have to use
Use their
exactly the wording. You're one word off and your notice does not apply.
Yeah.
It's happening like.
So
Luckily, we have Malia's detailed.
Copy and
brain.
paste.
Yeah, Malia's detail-oriented brain to help you this through this time.
Thank you.
So it might make sense with the changing of council to do this in January, to get them used to having what a public hearing is like, what you have to do with the CDBG. And in our experience with CDBG, public hearing, no one shows up.
What?
They just don't, not on this one because it's generic.
Yeah.
You'll get a lot of grousing from people what we should do, but most. You don't get an attendance, so there'll be a nice. Break in like for the council as to how you do the CDBG noticing and the strict requirements that they have.
And just doesn't want to do it again. This is what that meeting.
Yes. Let's just put it this way, this is not my priority for January sixth to be done, so. Do you want to pick a date now so that it's out there? Do you want to wait until January sixth and have that be?
Can we pick a date now and just that way we have something to work towards?
I would recommend it. That way we can get the notice, especially like around the holidays and everything. I know it's only 7 days notice, but we
Yeah.
can already have everything ready to go. So
Could add it to the 13th, which is your second meeting in January, or your work session.
assuming the council will keep
That's
the
what I was
same
gonna say.
day.
That's why I
that's
say.
the only consideration.
But I think that if we schedule a public hearing and we say we have a public hearing this night, then we just have it on the calendar and we can look.
That's the week of Balloon Festival. Jen loves scheduling all
that's
these
my
things the
favorite.
weeks of.
Actually, well,
Balloon Festival,
Balloon Festival 16th, 17th and 18th, so I'm okay on the 13th theoretically.
Yeah, works for me.
it works for me. Okay, so what time do you want the public hearing?
Maybe that's the element that we can decide as we get closer. We know that there's going to be one. But as you all start discussing in December what time meetings are, then we can lock that one in.
Okay.
But yeah, I think Malia to have a deadline and to have everything.
Yeah, it's hard to get everything ready on the last minute.
Yeah.
Okay, is there any other?
Can, we put on the agenda to review the 501c status on community center donations? Is that? Waivers.
Yeah.
Has been brought to my attention yesterday that Bob does not currently qualify for our community center waiver fees schedule.
I cannot put on this. Sure, let's,
Well, I just wonder if we could just open it up to just 501s in general, not specifically 501c3s.
where's Luann when you need it?
That's why it'll be easier.
Okay, I've got it on my notes. This is one thing, I know that we have a note taker, I know that we have Aaron. But everybody needs to be thinking about
Who's gonna
what
do
we're,
this?
what we're talking about now going forward, that's going into January, who's keeping track of this besides me?
Yep.
Because I try to keep track and get the input from all of you. But you'll have a meeting January 6th, and somebody needs to be looking at what you're saying November, December.
Yep.
Oh, she got her new notepad out. What do you
You-
call that, your day planner?
It is the most amazing planner system I've ever encountered. I have the utmost hope that it'll keep me organized, but we'll see.
You're using it, that's a good thing. I buy them and they sit in the closet or on the desk. It's like, oh yeah, remember that fancy dancy thing you bought that you've never even opened after you bought it?
And then what's always best is if you buy a second one, thinking this would be a really good idea, you just don't you have the first one. When we moved, I had
Yeah.
3 tops that were basically identical with the tags up 2 of them.
Right, and and the blank one on the one that the tags didn't.
Bluff Waterworks is tomorrow night, for those of you who have nothing to do at 7 o'clock. Please feel free to join Linda and me and Jen at Linda's. My last, next to the last. Anything else anybody can think of? Are we good to go? Well, 5:39.
Wait, Leah's shaking. Leah's.
I have things.
Okay, quick.
Okay. So I was on the phone with
Anthony Torres of UNHS, and this is just putting this on your radars. It's gonna show up on your meeting soon. They are interested in installing a 200 amp service at the community center that would have two 100 amp plugins for their RVs, their mobile units. And they are also willing to include on this power bill that would go to them, powering the pavilion with outlets as well as lights. And so also to be part of that discussion would be our current service with Emory, and if the town council isn't willing to upgrade it, they might be willing to just pay for Wi-Fi service for them specifically. So to be continued, so just throwing this onto your radar for now.
One more other. Dark Sky Festival is this weekend.
Good point.
Rain or shine, we have a fabulous lineup of speakers if we don't, good weather.
I predict you're gonna have good weather. It looked
Okay.
like a really, Diana kind of ran through, it looked like.
I'm glad you're helpful with that.
I am. All right. See everybody at the Dark Skies.
Yes.
So it's 5:41.
Thanks, everyone. A motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
I
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. Ready to have the report.